All right, so tonight's session, we got an hour to talk about guitar techniques. We kind of built this around recent graduate or a beginning guitar player, and they got their chords down. They got a couple chord progressions. And technique is really what starts to give your playing some really nice color and flavor and pizzazz. So we put in a PDF in the community that is, I'm going to be kind of going off of that tonight. If show of hands if any of you had a chance to look at that. Fantastic. All right. So in each of the techniques, we had a song example, and there was a YouTube link that went out to that. And then there's a couple lesson examples. If you looked at any of the lesson examples, I'll be covering those a little bit tonight. You could probably tell I really favor Tony Policastro. I really like his teaching style. He was a lot of the lesson videos. And I also chose him because I was trying to find acoustic guitar examples. All right, so the way we're going to do this is I'm going to talk about 3 or 4 of these techniques. We'll go through them technique by technique. We'll look at how you read tablature, and you don't have to, if you don't know how to read tab, don't worry, we're not going to go in a lot of detail on that. I'll just kind of show you the quick visual and what the tab is trying to show you. And then we'll talk about how you do the technique. And while I'm doing this, kind of leave your mics off, but please have your guitar and try and do these slides and bends and pull-offs. And then we'll come back and do a Q&A on each of these if there's questions that you have. All right, I'm going to start with pulling up that PDF because I want to talk about slides. I took most of this from this website, so this would be a link that would go out to the School of Rock, and there's a deep dive that they do on reading tablature. It goes into a lot more detail than I'm going to go into tonight. So if reading tabs is something you want to brush up on, that would be awesome. But what I want to do is talk a little bit about each of these techniques, and I want to talk about how they're notated, because this is, if you're getting into tablature or you're now learning about these techniques, this is how you're going to see it noted a lot of times. Even when, say, you're looking up chords to your favorite Merle Haggard song and you go to Ultimate Guitar tab and you pull it up, a lot of times they'll transcribe or they'll tab some of the unique guitar parts in some of these songs. So the first technique we're going to talk about is sliding. And really sliding is just changing the note pitch, and that depends on how many frets you're sliding. In tablature, what we note is when there's a diagonal line that starts low and goes up, in this case, the 5th fret to the 9th fret, then our pitch is going up, obviously. The note sound is going higher in range. And if we're reading tablature, if you think about having your guitar laid down on the table so that the belly of the guitar is pointing at your ceiling, you have your low E string here and your high E string here. So tablature is saying on your G string, go ahead. This has nothing to do with fingers. In tablature, the number will always be the fret number, not your fingers. So on here, we're going to start on our G string on the 5th fret, and we're going to slide to the 9th fret. That's what that is illustrating. Or we're going to go down to our D string, and we can practice these in a second. Start on our 3rd string and just go down. Now you see how the line's going from high to low, so the pitch is going down to our 2nd fret. And so I won't go through the Dig-a-Pony is a great example of some slide guitar. I also thought of, I think I may have put the YouTube link in. It was another Beatles song, Two of Us, where George is playing like an acoustic bass, and it's all very slidey. It's a great example of slide songs. You probably have your own example of slide songs. And then this is a link to a Tony Policastro video that talks about some of the mechanics. We'll talk about these in a second, but these are kind of the mechanics that we want you to think about when you're working on sliding. So let me come back to you here. And let me switch out my camera. All right, so I'm going to try and give you a close-up of my fretting board. If I'm looking at that guitar tab, that first example, I'm on my G string, E, A, D, G. I'm going to be on my 4th string here. and I'm going to be on the 5th fret. And I got to get up to my, so this is the first kind of idea when you think about, before you slide, always think about where you're starting and where you're ending. That it's visually just good, especially as you're sliding into where you're going. So this wants me to slide past the 6th fret, past the 7th fret, past the 8th fret, all the way to my 9th fret. So I'm going to try and maintain, and this is kind of the rookie mistake, is you're not maintaining pressure. So you got a note ringing out, and you want that note to stay ringing, and as soon as I begin to slide, if I lighten my tension at all, I lose my note. So I'm going to keep a firm, I'm not squeezing the heck out of the neck, but I'm keeping a nice firm pressure on it. And I'm going to go up to my 9th fret. Now slides, tablature doesn't tell you this. Slides could be very fast. Slides could be very slow. A little harder to do on an acoustic guitar than an electric guitar, but that's all there is to the slide. The second example was starting on the D string on our 3rd fret. So this would be an F, and I'm just going to slide down towards the nut 1 fret. So I'm going to go to an E. I'm sliding from an F to an E. So the thing with sliding is maintaining that pressure. The other thing I want is when you can target landing and starting on the sweet spot of the fret. We all know, as we've been learning guitar, that the best place to fret is towards the forward fret bar. So if I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to slide from my 5th to my 9th, I kind of want to start at my sweet spot as opposed to starting back here. And I'd like to try and end on my sweet spot, right behind the fret. So constant pressure, the sweet spot. And the other thing I learned from the Tony Policastro video that I just didn't think about is think about your thumb. Now, I don't want to do a 4 fret slide for this. I'm just going to do a slide from the 3rd fret using my G string to the 5th fret. But you can't see my thumb right now. So I'm going to just on purpose bring my thumb up a little bit. What you don't want, and again, if you're covering a lot of the fretboard with a big slide, of course your thumb is going to come up. But if I'm just going to my 5th fret, you don't see my thumb coming with my finger. I'm not using my whole hand to go. My thumb's actually kind of going the other way. So they call that a stable thumb. Again, if you're covering a lot of the fretboard, of course your thumb's going to move. We don't want it to feel like really mechanical for you. But really the thing with sliding is keeping that constant pressure, kind of zeroing in on the sweet spot of the fretboard, and just kind of being mindful that your thumb isn't going crazy here. I'm looking for a pick. So that's the mechanics of a slide. Are there any questions about sliding up or sliding down?
Yeah, as I'm doing this, I'm realizing that the sound of my thumb or my finger against the string is louder than the string itself.
Go ahead and do it. Oh, you mean your first pluck is loud?
The pluck is loud, but then I hear my fingers sliding on the string more than the string.
So a couple thoughts with that. Now, so for this example, I'm using a pick. You don't obviously have to use a pick. You are going to get some of that skin tone on your slide. What is good to do is play around a little bit with different feelings of it. Like go ahead and press probably harder than you think you need to. And you're going to get a nice clear note. You know, we don't want to hurt your fingers, but it gives you an idea of the relationship between how much you're pressing and clarity. The sound you're hearing, you know, of your skin against the strings, that could be dirty strings. But you did remind me that, you know, you start off with whatever volume you're first picking. I could do a quiet slide or a loud, using my pick, slide. you kind of want that second note to be able to ring out and retain those. So again, you don't want to get there and then loosen pressure because you'll just kill the note. Let me show you an exercise that Tony does in the video for slides. It's kind of a, if you all grew up in our curriculum, you all learned the chromatic scale. So I'm going to have this finger, first fret, slide, and each of these are going to be slides just over one fret. So I'm going to go from first to third with my one finger. Then my second finger is going to grab the second fret and go 2, 4. Then my third finger is going to grab the third fret and go 3, 5. And then my pinky will grab 4 and go 6. And obviously my pinky and my third, probably my pinky for sure is my weakest finger. It's harder for me to maintain pressure, but that's just kind of a nice exercise to get a feel for the different pressures you need with each of those fingers. One of the songs I want to show you that uses slide is the Eagles' Already Gone. You'll hear it in the music you love. You're going to hear slides now that you're listening for them. You're going to hear them everywhere. So this Eagles song is pretty simple. It's just a 3-chord song. It's a G chord, a D chord, and a C chord. But what I want to key in on is the riff. It's a 6-note riff that we're going to learn together real quick. And the second and third notes is where we're going to see the slide. So over my G chord, I'm going to start on the root and I'm going to do, and then I'm going to fret 3 and sound it. Then I'm going to fret 5 and sound it, but I'm going to slide to 7. So I have, and obviously a slide is one noise is the pick, but you get 2 sounds. And that's true when we talk about hammer-ons and pull-ons. I'm just doing one down strum, but I'm getting 2 notes from it. So 3, 5, 7, and we're sliding from 5 to 7. That's the first half of the riff. Then I'm going to go to the 5th fret of the D string, the A string, 5th fret of the A string, and the 7th fret of the A string, and then back. So let me do that in context. So 3, 5, slide to 7, and then on the A string, 5, 7, 5, and that is the riff. Now if I played that iconic riff without the slide, it just doesn't sound the same, right? I mean, the notes are right, but it doesn't have that attitude that the slide gives it. And if you're interested in all, the second half of that is identical. We're just starting in a different place. We're going to start on the C note for the second half of that, but it's going to be the same pattern. So 3, 5, slide, 7 to the D string, and 5, 7, 5. So, and you can kind of hear how that slide just kind of makes it very unique in that sense. Any questions on slides? Brian, is it cleaning up at all as you're doing different pressures with it? Yeah? Awesome. I'm going to move over back to our next technique. I kind of want to talk about hammer-ons and pull-offs together because they're very related. So let's talk a little bit about the hammer-ons. I want you to be careful practicing these. If you try and sit down and do a whole bunch of concentrated practices of hammer-ons and pull-offs, please be careful because it's really easy to hurt your finger. Because the hammer-ons, they do require a bit of force. Again, we don't want you to feel like you're squeezing your guitar neck, But the whole idea of the hammer-on is you need enough downward pressure. Again, you're striking the string once, but you're getting 2 notes out of it, and that second note is the hammer-on that your finger is doing. The way we read it in tablature, so this is an example on our G string, and I got to tell you, when I saw this, I fell off my chair. This is a crazy hammer-on. I wouldn't ask anyone to do this because of that stretch. You got 3 frets between that. You're going to have to probably use your pinky unless you've got really interesting fingers. And that is a really difficult hammer-on. So they're saying go to the 3rd fret of the G string. And I got to skip the 4th fret, the 5th fret, the 6th fret. And I got to get my pinky way over here, but I got to hammer it on. I mean, I could do it, but it is not comfortable. But how they tab it is you'll see a little H, and that really just means hammer on. And this would be the frets. So again, if it's a slide, you'd see a diagonal line going up from 3 to 7. This is now an arched, saying we're not sliding, and you're going to do a hammer on. So let me come back to you with a close-up. So instead of doing that crazy 4-fret one, let's kind of just go maybe to, we'll be on the 3rd fret of our D string. And I'm gonna like hammer on using my 2nd finger. And this is another one where the volume of your 2nd note should be, the goal would be to make it as loud as the 1st. Now your 1st, if you're using a pick, well, it might always sound a little bit louder just because of the plastic. But the idea is what you don't want is a really quiet, because that's now you're muting it. And that's what I mean. You don't have to kill it, but you do got to come down quick. A little bit of an aggressive move just to get that to ring out. This would be the example of the hammer-on. So there's a certain amount of force that's needed. And you think about it kind of fast. I mean, it's hard to do a slow hammer-on. By slow, I mean your hammer finger. It's really kind of a quick, aggressive movement. It doesn't have to be like you're pressing through the fretboard, but you want to hammer enough where you can sound that note out. And the same with slides, there's a sweet spot. So if you can hit it right behind, you don't want to hit it obviously over the fret, but right behind the fret would be perfect. So let's go back to an exercise for that. We did our sliding exercise chromatically where we slid and each finger slid. We're going to kind of take the same idea and just start with an open E string. And again, our fingers will each own one of these 4 frets. We'll do a hammer on, and you can hammer with open strings. Hammer from the open low E to the F, or fret 1. And now I'm going to keep this on here, fretted, and then my next finger is going to fret the 2nd fret, 3rd fret. So again, I'm picking once, but my 2nd note is a result of the hammer on, not the pick. So I'll try and show you my pick here. And again, my pinky is going to be my weaker one. So that's kind of a nice hammer-on exercise to get all your fingers involved. You could do it on the high string as well to get a feel for that. Pull-offs, there's a little bit more of a technique that you have to think about. So let's go back to our 3rd fret, and let's make it an easy one where we did a hammer-on from the 3rd to the 4th. A hammer-on will always be raising the pitch of the note. I can't think of a hammer-on that would lower it. A pull-off will always be lowering the pitch of the note. I can't think of an area where your pull-off makes the note higher. So a hammer-on's going from a note and raising it, in this case 1 fret or a semitone. A pull-off, if I were to pull off this finger, is going to lower it. Now for my pull-off, instead of using my 2nd finger in the 2nd fret, I want to skip a fret and I want to try it with my 3rd finger. So my 3rd finger is going to start on the 5th fret, and my goal is to pull off to the 1st fret. That means this guy needs to maintain constant pressure, and this guy, and here's the trick with pull-offs. The tendency is to lift your finger forward or up. What you should feel like is your pull-off finger is flicking down. So it's almost feels like it's going towards the floor. And I'm really grabbing with the ball of my finger the meat of the string when I'm doing it. Don't worry about, you know, with some of these techniques, it's a lot harder to mute the strings under it so they're not making noises. That's kind of a different technique. Ken will talk a little bit about muting. But right now the goal would be to make that pull-off firm and try and get it so that the second note is sounding nice and loud and ringing out as well. So a hammer-on, pull-off. And again, the feeling to me is not out, not up, because that you lose all sound. You're almost grabbing it and flicking down towards the floor is kind of the feel. So your finger should almost be going a little bit down, and again, not straight out. If you're going straight out, you're not flicking, you're not grabbing the string enough. And again, there's another exercise, just like we did the hammer-on one. Of course, we would start opposite. We'd start with all four fretted already, and we'd pull off starting with our pinky. And you could tell I struggle still with my pinky. Any questions? I want to show a little bit application in the song, but any question about the technique of hammer-ons or pull-offs? David Johnson, I don't know if you're with us. I know you posted in there that the pull-offs were getting difficult for you.
Yeah, I have the same problem you have. I don't have strength in my other fingers.
That exercise is nice. I mean, that's either, you know, unless they're damaged, then that's just repetition. We don't usually use our fingers for that. That's kind of just like you had to get used to bar chords and some of these 3-finger chords, your fingers got to get used to the technique stuff. So we just talked about hammer-ons and pull-offs. We kind of went through the mechanics that are listed both in the PDF and then the YouTube videos that are supplied for each of the techniques. If you haven't looked at the lesson videos, those will help you with the mechanics for each of these things. But just to summarize really quickly with bends and hammer-ons and pull-offs, we're basically strumming a note once with hammer-on and pull-offs and slides, and we're getting 2 sounds. So it's the original sound where we're going to slide, where I'm going to pick, and then our second note where we end. Hammer-on would be the same, 1 pick, 2 notes, pull off the same, 1 pick, 2 notes. And I was going to talk a little bit about an application of hammer-ons and pull-offs. So the beginning of that beautiful Led Zeppelin song is we're starting with our open G string, hammering onto the second, pulling back off open, and then I'm just grabbing the 4th fret of the D string. That's the riff, and I gotta let Gene in. So it's a hammer-on pull-off. I'm going to grab the 4th fret of the D string, and I'm going to play that open then, and then I'm just going to strum a G chord. Now, we don't have to learn this together, but I wanted to show you the second phrase because it's a double pull-off, and it does get your pinky involved. So the first riff of that starts similar. Those first 4 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4 are the same, but then it goes to the 4th fret of the G string, and now I'm going to pull off to the 2nd fret and open at the same time. It's going to sound like this. So I'm getting 3 notes. There's a pull off to the 2nd fret, a pull off open I'm not strumming again. I'm just strumming once. So to take it from the top, hammer on, pull off on that 2nd fret, 4th fret of the D string, then open, and then strumming the G. And then the fun triple one is, and then I'm just going to hit the open D string and strum a D chord. It's actually a very pretty riff that he made. So you could see how these hammer-on and spice, if Jimmy Page played that and he wasn't doing the hammer-ons and pull-offs, it would sound something like, I don't even know if I could do it. I mean, you get the idea, but the hammer-ons and pull-offs obviously give it just so much more flavor and juice. Any questions about hammer-ons or pull-offs? If not, I want to talk about one of my favorites, which is bends. Again, this PDF is available for you in CAVARTS. We talked a little bit, the Zeppelin song was Over the Hills and Far Away. Neil Young also uses it. There's an iconic, it's basically, I think, a hammer-on using the E minor. But you'll hear them, you'll start to hear them. If you start to play these and get them under your fingers, you'll start to hear them in the music that you love. And there's a couple lesson videos both on hammer-ons and pull-offs. And then we're going to go to bending. So bending is a very expressive way to stay on one fret, but bend it in a way that you're actually creating different pitches to that one note. So unlike sliding, when we're actually moving off of a fret, or hammer-ons where we're hammering to another fret or pulling off, bending is we're going to stay within that little real estate of one fret, and we're actually going to just push up with our fingers, and it's going to change the pitch of the note. So I'm just going to kind of key in right here. Well, so let's start with tablature. The way we see it in tablature, this would be fretting the G string on the 5th fret. Now, this arrow means we want to bend up. So that means you start normally fretted and you bend up. And they're giving you an example of on the D string, the 2nd fret, bending up. I wanted to show you that right here, the arrow may show a quarter or half. So you might see this with like a quarter fraction or a half fraction. That's telling you how much you want to bend the note. You want to bend it a quarter of a note, and we'll demonstrate this in a minute. Don't worry about it if it's sounding like math. A half bend would be even a higher pitch to a note. So if you think of quarter and half, we're talking about the increments between the notes. So a quarter is smaller, and then a half note would be higher sounding in pitch. And the thing with bending is you want some nice firm pressure when you're fretting that. And you want to use your other fingers to kind of help with that. So let me come back to you and try and show you this close up. So to make it easy, obviously it's easier to bend the higher up the neck you are. It's easier to bend when you're on an electric guitar. So instead of trying to bend way down here, which will hurt my fingers more than I want them to do, I'm just going to go say, let's go to the 12th fret on our B string. So what I'm going to do, the thing with bending is you want your other finger, so this is going to be my bend finger, my 3rd, which is on the 12th fret of the B string. I'm going to take, and this is what will start to feel a little different if you're new to bending, but I'm going to take these 2 fingers and put them on the frets right behind it. So I'm all on the same fret. I'm on my 1st finger's on 10, my 2nd finger's on 11 of the B string, and my 3rd finger. Now these 2 guys aren't going to do anything but help stabilize the bend. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pluck. It's hard to hear because the note's dying. And what these 2 guys are doing are helping. If I was trying to bend without these guys helping, it would really hurt. And what I want you to notice is a couple things. I know when you're taught to play guitar, a lot of teachers will say, if you look at my thumb, they'll say that's a high thumb. They don't like that. For bending, it's actually a fulcrum. So a little bit of your thumb, if you're able to, that might come over is okay. And what I want you to think about the motion, when I'm bending and I'm holding my guitar like this, here's my motion. I'm just kind of turning my wrist a little bit. I'm not actually lifting everything up. And that's why my thumb over the neck acts like a little bit of a fulcrum. So I'm gonna speed it up a little bit just so you can hear it. And you can't really see it, but my wrist is just going like this. It's kind of like going up. It's not doing this to get to the notes. And these two guys are really helping. I can feel a constant pressure on it. And I'm about at the fingertip that I'm using is, you can kind of see that that's about where I fret, but I'm kind of digging in because I have a feeling like I'm pushing up with the fret. So the thing with bends is to be able to play it in tune, to bend in tune, because when I start bending, here's my note not bent. Here's my note bent a little bit. Now you hear the pitch going up. And the thing when you're learning bending, it's not just the technique of pushing the bend, it's trying to bend it to the note that you want. One fun exercise to do is put a chromatic tuner on your guitar and start sounding the note before you bend it. And then watch your tuner begin to change as you begin to push up. You could even keep giving it constant picks to get the tone going. And your chromatic tuner will tell you exactly where your pitch is on that. And there's obviously a lot of great tunes, both acoustic and electric, that use bends. Now, one of the things in the PDF, it showed you two types of bends. It showed you a bend that starts right on the fret and then I go up. There's another bend called a pre-bend, and that be in the notation with a P by the B. That means I'm going to already have my string bent. I didn't make a noise yet, and then I'm going to release the bend when I pick it. So here's a straight bend. Here's a pre-bend. Regular bend. Pre-bend. So the pre-bend already starts bent, and then you strum it and let it release. Straight bend, pre-bend. So for the Eric Clapton song, we're gonna go, it starts with a pre-bend on the 9th fret. So it's that beautiful, I could tell I bent my B string a little bit out of tune, but it starts with a pre-bend on the B string on the 9th fret. Bending, sometimes there's a lot more to it in terms of getting the note right. I use that chromatic tuner a lot when I was first trying to teach myself how to bend. I looked at the solo to Bohemian Rhapsody and While My Guitar Gently Weeps, because they use a lot of bends, and I'd put the chromatic tuner on. I'd learn the lick, and I'd really try and make sure that I'm bending, sliding into that note to really hear that. So, sliding, hammer-ons, pull-offs, bendings. Before I hand it over to Ken, is there any questions?
Yeah, you started out talking about the half and 1/4. How far do you bend to hit those? Is that is a half a quarter? Is that like a sharp or a flat, and half is a whole note, whole increment, or how's that work?
Yeah, Brian, that's a great question. So if we're executing our quarter note bend, we're going to actually be bending up to 1 fret, and I can demonstrate that. Let me show you. So I'm gonna say I'm putting my bending finger on the 12th fret of the B string, and I'm going to put my 2 helpers behind it. So I want to bend just a quarter note, which means I want this fretted note, the 13th fret. I got to get this note half a step to there. So, and I could test it. I could bend to where I think I hit it and then hit it. See, I was high, I was sharp. Now, if I want to go a whole step, I have this note down here that I want to get. So now I got to really push, and there's a rule of thumb. It's going to depend on your guitar, but it generally works. When I want a half step bend, I'm looking through my strings, and I get my half bend when I push this string up almost well past my D string, right there. So I could almost visualize based on the string above my hand when I hit the note. So now I need to push it another fret up. I need to go here. I'm trying to play both at the same time. There you go. See, I got to really push that. Now I'm pushing 2 strings up towards the ceiling to get...
Have you ever popped a string doing this?
On the electric guitar, yeah. Yeah, but they're, you know, your strings could take a lot of abuse. They really can. And
Okay.
if you haven't abused your strings, you're not playing your guitar right. Any other questions? I want to give some time to Ken to cover a couple more fun stuff we could do.
Is that my cue?
That's your cue, sir.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Let's start with harmonics. So let me play an example so we can hear it. We'll demonstrate harmonics here. So let's see if we can get this. Hopefully, can you hear all that? Can you hear this? Right here, right there. He's going to do it a couple more times, I believe. Right there. Okay, so that little harp-like sound, for those of you who are not familiar with that, that's natural harmonic, which is an overtone created on the instrument. And so let's just kind of review how to make that sound. There are a few places on this instrument where we can get those overtone harmonics. The simplest or the easiest one is right at the 12th fret. And basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to strum these strings at the 12th fret, and I'm going to barely touch it with my finger. And that's what actually that guitarist is doing right there. That was a bad example. And then he's got his pull-offs that Paul just demonstrated. So basically, if you're unfamiliar with this, some of you are doing it. I can see you've done it before. Just try to take one string, and basically you're not pressing down on the string. You're touching it, but you're not pressing down. And when you hit it, release your finger, and just see if you can get that high E string to ring out. If you get that, try the B string. And where I'm hitting it is right at the fret. And it's the fret above on the high end of the dots, okay? That's where I place my finger, right on that metal fret, right above it, barely touch the string. And those are my 12th string harmonics. And so what can you do with this, okay? Well, to add a little variety to your playing, if you're playing an E chord, course, we're going to D chord. So we can kind of throw those in there every now and then. It's pretty good practice to get up the neck and back down the neck, which is going to help your technique quite well. So there's harmonics at the 12th fret. There's harmonics at the 7th fret. Okay, now interestingly, that harmonic is an octave higher than the note. So when I hit that harmonic, the 7th fret, that's a B note. Now you'll notice these are harder to ring out. The easiest harmonic to ring out is at the 12th fret. It's a little more challenging at the 7th fret. And there are harmonics at the 5th fret, which are even harder, in my opinion, especially on an acoustic guitar, to get to ring out. So those are your natural harmonics. Okay. And we got a few minutes left. I don't know if there's any questions on that. So if you're unfamiliar with that, just the practice is just to pick one string and see if you can get one string to ring out on that harmonic. Barely touch the string. As I pluck it, I lift my finger off. So it kind of happens all at once.
Very challenging.
It's kind of the timing between when you pluck and when you lift. That's
Yeah.
what
Yeah. I mean, when I get my fingers touching the string, I pluck and
your fingers barely touching. You don't need to be pressing
barely
down
touching.
on it at
Barely.
all.
You're not pressing. Yeah, you just literally, like if I just tried to play that string, it's muted. But here you get. So that's a harmonic at the 12th fret, 7th fret, and 5th fret. 5th fret, I at least on this particular guitar, I can't get the 5th fret to ring out very much. It has to be almost perfect. So those are your harmonics, and then we got a few more minutes. Just want to spend a few minutes talking about muting, which is to me a really fantastic technique on this instrument, especially the acoustic guitar, because this instrument has some excellent percussive qualities. And using muting, we can add some variety and a more percussive nature to our playing. So by muting, we're basically like, if I play the string and I just put my finger on it, it's dull, right? So in and of itself, you really don't want that. But if we start combining that with, like saying, playing a chord. Now right now what I'm muting is right hand muting. So I could strum, or I could strum and mute. Now I'm just, again, what I'm doing is I'm deadening the strings with my upper hand or even my wrist. So it gives me more of a percussive sound. So you notice I stopped the ringing. Thank you, Paul. Okay, so I can mute with this hand, but I also can mute with my left hand, which is a little bit easier, say if I'm playing a bar chord. So strum, and basically what I do is I play the chord and I pull off the frets a little bit with my fretting hand. So we start adding some percussive elements to it. And you can do that with an open chord. Like I'll play the D chord here. It's a little bit harder, and especially if I have playing open strings like we do with these open chords, we're playing an open string. Now, if I need the mute, I'm going to have to do both. I'm using both my hand and my palm and my fretting hand simultaneously to get that muting down, okay? You can hear this in a lot of tunes. By the way, Paul put together this document, and so good job, Paul. He's got a lot of great musical examples in there, which I encourage you to listen to. We only have a couple more minutes here, so Ed Sheeran's Thinking Out Loud, the studio version, not the one with the dancer. That's a great version as well, but it was just him in the studio with his guitar. He's doing a real nice right hand muting thing, which is pretty cool. I had a Stevie Ray Vaughan tune queued up, and we're in the interest of time, we'll not do that. But he's kind of using a percussive sound where he's muting and playing a nice shuffle feel. And again, that works because he's not playing a lot of open strings. So muting, it's going to just, what I would suggest if you're unfamiliar with this, is just take an open chord, play it, and let it, and stop ringing with your hand right here. Don't worry about this. So it'll be unfamiliar at first, but the more you do it, now I'm using both hands. I'm doing some muting here and with my palms as well. So those are the two things that I probably, and we're really kind of out of time at this point. I'm going to turn it back to Paul. I do have one comment to make about the next brigade, but I'll wait until Paul kind of sums up this session. If you have anything, Paul.
Thank you, Kenneth. You've inspired me. Any questions on any of the effects techniques we covered? Obviously, we didn't get to all of them. There's a whole boatload of techniques we haven't talked about yet. Some of them are beyond me. Sweep picking, I don't know how to sweep pick. I play around a little bit with tapping. These are kind of electric guitar things as well. But I'm hoping we gave you enough of the basics to just start playing around with them and start hearing them. Like you'll be able to hear these in some of your favorite songs as well and start replicating them. They add so much different flavor and different kind of color to the sound that you're doing. Any other questions? Or now I know it's late to ask you this, but if you're like, oh, I wish you would have covered this technique, we always have more guitar brigades. You could let us know what we missed, if we missed anything.
Yeah, we did skip over vibrato in the sake of time, but I always see people just kind of shaking the neck. Real quick question: are you shaking like up and down, or this,
More sideways.
north and
so
south?
When we showed you how the bend is more of a wrist thing as opposed to this, it's more like this. The vibrato is kind of a bend, but you're just staying within that one fret and you're doing it kind of quicker. So instead of a nice little big bend, you're just doing like tiny little bends really quickly to give it a little bit of a tremolo sound to it. That's it.
For your harmonics there, how did you get the 3-note harmonics on that one song?
You mean do you mean that?
Yeah.
I'm hitting multiple. I'm hitting the D, the 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st string at the same time.
Okay.
I'm like strumming the chord.
You're strumming it and then pulling off of the harmonic?
Instead of playing a single note.
Okay.
I'm just.
Cool.
That's
awesome.
Yeah, that's the sound that from that.
Okay. That's beautiful.
Yeah, harmonics are fun. All right, everyone, thank you so much. Appreciate all that you're doing, and we look forward to doing more of these live events. Let us know if you anything you need live lesson wise in the community, and we'll be posting our upcoming events as they get scheduled. We had our inaugural, is that the right word? We had our first episode of the workbench. We just started this, and the whole idea is we've got a lot of great learning content, but we don't have a lot of content. We have no content about caring for your instrument, maintaining your instrument, and maybe even, dare I say, modding your instrument. So the very first session, we have multiple cameras, and John DeMarco is letting us into his shop. So we have an over-the-shoulder camera, we have an on-the-table camera. We talked about cleaning, the difference between cleaning the finished wood and the fretboard, the unfinished wood of your guitar, changing strings. I think Saturdays is going to be more about the maintenance stuff. So the first was care and cleaning and tuning and changing strings. And tomorrow night is going to be more about like what minor things you might look for to see if your guitar's healthy. And if it's not, again, there's a difference between taking your guitar to someone that makes a living doing this if it's really bad, but there's a lot of this that you can do yourself, or at least diagnose yourself. So that'll be our second one. And then we're going to talk about maybe a modding series. We're kind of excited about it.
I have a quick question for Ken. So when I'm doing the harmonics on the 12, and then I go up to like, what is it, 5 or no, 7?
7.
It sounds higher pitched.
It is.
than the 12.
It's an octave higher. It is. Yeah.
Okay.
It's still a B. Like if you're playing the 7th fret at the E string is a B, but it's going to sound as if it was an octave higher. Yes. Absolutely.
It's curious. That's interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I like it.
All right, everyone. Thanks a lot. Have a great night, and we'll see you around.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.